Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I am your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and today we are joined by...
Travis Mosler. I feel like we're the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, looking at each other, yeah. Well, Travis, it's been a long time since you were on the podcast, and if I remember correctly, it was on The Mandalorian?
Maybe? Was it season one?
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like.
Well, I
Probably
think it's
the
only
season one finale. Or was it? Yeah, no, it had to be in that because we also did Rise of Skywalker around that because they happened at the same time.
Yeah.
But Rise of Skywalker was just that. Or were you on Rise of Skywalker?
I don't know, man.
No, he wasn't on that one, though. I don't think so.
2020 happened since
It's been a year, exactly.
It has been a year.
Feels
Anyway,
like
we're
longer than a
back.
year.
We're back, and we're talking the last two episodes of The Mandalorian Season 2, the Believer and the Rescue. And we thought there'd be no one better than to bring our Star Wars confidant back on for us. And
Not a single person better.
yeah, not a single person better.
Actually,
People from Lucasfilm were trying to
Filoni.
contact us, and we said no.
yeah,
And,
Filoni called and I said, "Fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
yeah, I said
You
Filoni.
think you can
who?
just do anything you want now that you're saving Star Wars?
Yeah.
Whatever."
Anyway, guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below and the notification bell. That way you're up to date on all future episodes. So, guys, let's get into it. The last two episodes of The Mandalorian Season 2, what did we think about it?
Travis, start her off.
Okay, I'll go. I mean, so good in just everything, man. Starting with chapter 15. I mean, some people have said, "Oh, that's kind of a filler," like, "Oh, they kind of paused and went away from things," but like what they did in that episode was just so incredible. Bill Burr's return. I think he pretty much delivered the best acting performance we've probably seen this season.
Or maybe on the show as a whole.
Maybe. And I think that took the world by surprise. Some people have said, like, in the few minutes that he was on screen, we saw a stormtrooper story with more depth than we saw from Ben in an entire trilogy.
Yes.
I didn't think about that. But you're
I would
right.
agree with that. I would agree.
Yeah.
Just so good. I mean, from start to finish. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, the taking the mask off. Like, I think since season one, we knew that was going to happen. We saw that in the finale in season one, but that was kind of, it was different. This was a more commitment to, I am sacrificing the foundations of what I've built my life upon for my love of this child and the protection of the child and all this stuff. Like, it was just really cool to see. And the way that they did it, I think, made sense. I think that's the cool thing. It's like they didn't try to come into this series with different, character directions and plot points that they wanted to achieve and reverse engineer them and try to shoehorn them and make them work. Like, everything that they did made sense. And I loved the episode. I loved the pirates, that whole scene, like infiltrating the base. And I hope we get to see more of Mayfield just because he's a really cool character. And I mean, just so much about it. I love it.
I bet we will. Totally. We'll see him more in the future for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then obviously I could talk for hours about the finale. I think the world's on the same page as far as that. I think it's opened up a lot of really interesting conversations about the character of Luke again. And it's exciting to see where they're going to take this series. It's exciting to see where they're going to take the characters that have been introduced.
Yeah.
We can break that down even more as we keep going, but
Yeah, we'll definitely get there because I can't wait as well.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting for this conversation for a couple of weeks now. So.
Oh yeah, no, but it's kind of good. I feel like we've been able to like gestate on it, absorb it. And,
for sure.
Yeah. I'll give my thoughts real quick. I agree with pretty much everything Travis said. I thought Bill Burr stole the show on that episode, even though we got to see Din Djarin's face again. I was kind of more captivated by Bill Burr's performance. And I think I said to one of you in a text, or maybe both of you, that I think Breaking Bad was like Bill Burr's kind of turn into acting. He's a stand-up comedian. I think he's from Albuquerque. And so I think he was like an Albuquerque-based stand-up comedian that got connected with the show. And now he's becoming like a serious drama actor. And I'm like, this is really cool. And he's kind of a unique type of actor and character. I don't feel like there's a lot of people that bring the style of presence he does. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I thought that the action was great. I kind of was a little bit like, as far as was it a filler episode? In some ways it was to draw out the tension, but they did such a good job filling it with character development. Like, if you're going to do a filler, fill it with character development if you're not going to progress the plot as directly, you know. And I feel like they did that in such a very substantial way that it's the good kind of filler. It's the kind of filler that makes, when the plot does advance, feel and mean so much more, right? Because of the Mandalorian taking his helmet off for Baby Yoda, even to get there, everything else, it just felt like such a great build up to that, you know, final emotional moment and choice. So yeah, and of course we'll get to the fun stuff in episode 16 shortly. But man, it definitely exceeded my expectations. Like, I expected it to be good. I had high expectations, and it exceeded them, and that's really impressive.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
I think we talked about it too. I expected a 2-part finale, kind of like last year, just because it seems like that's kind of the model they've followed, is they build up to a big kind of climactic confrontation and then have it split up. But it's cool to see that they can kind of deviate from what they've done before in interesting ways that keep us on our toes, and deliver a finale that, I mean,
shocks the world. I'm so surprised there wasn't like leaks almost. Like, I'm impressed they kept the Luke reveals.
Mark Hamill tweeted about that too. He's like, man, this is the true miracle, is that this did not get out. Like,
yeah, he did. When he first tweeted, like, y'all seen anything good on TV lately?
Yeah,
great.
Part of the coolest part about all this is just watching Mark Hamill just relish it online, man. Like, he's
the best. He's so fun to follow online. He sent that Tosh Station photo. I sent to y'all. Oh yeah, at the gas station. He had a power converter in his hand. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. First of all, I agree with everything you guys said, and we'll get into the nitty gritty in a second. And there's a lot to talk about. I think that my biggest thing about just walking away from these last 2 episodes is that it's, even though there were things that I really enjoyed about the sequel trilogy, and there was moments in there that like really moved me. It's nice to be in a position, a place in the world where when you see something, even if you're not directly thinking about it, but whenever it's all over, you're like, man, I know every single fan of this subject matter is in unanimous agreement about something right now. And it's good that Star Wars is back to that place, and I hope we can keep holding on to it for a while. No, it's great to be a Star Wars fan, especially that last episode,
Yeah, and I'll say this. Actually, Donna and I were talking about this before you hopped back on, Travis, that Disney deserves credit that 1 year ago we were just finishing The Rise of Skywalker and having those feelings, and those feelings about the prequel or the sequel trilogy and just general Star Wars as a whole. We had The Mandalorian, but it kind of felt like this island of quality amongst this just sea of just inconsistency and just poor quality. And now it feels like that is the new Star Wars. Is this? I mean, really, they use the Mandalorian's quality to birth new parts of the universe to explore, and that's really exciting. And to feel this positive about the Star Wars universe and IP going forward 1 year after the end of some of the worst, or I would say the worst Star Wars content we've, in a trilogy, I guess, what I would say collectively as a whole, just how much it didn't work.
Or at least some of the most divisive.
Right.
Yeah. And I would think even the people that, I got to think both sides still feel like it's just an uneven trilogy. one movie contradicts another, and it doesn't feel like it was made in in synchrony. In synchrony.
It doesn't feel that way because it wasn't.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true. It's funny.
I've thought
the way they
about.
are.
Daniel, I've thought about this too, and just what Disney's been able to do. I think it's awesome, but I think it's risky and a little worrisome because once you strike gold, people expect gold, And so the thing about the Star Wars universe and all these movies and stuff, like to be like a true Star Wars fan, you have to extend grace to these movies and these trilogies, knowing that they are very imperfect. There's some things that don't line up. Disney's trying to wrangle it in and really hone the story in and stuff, but now that we're seeing this next level, that's not just great world building, great mythos and stuff like that, but it's excellent craft. Yeah. It's excellent story. Like it's cohesive. It connects to so many different things. They're building a big universe. Like they're going to have to maintain the bar.
And I think, though, I agree. You're right. There's some risk there. And it's not that we can fully trust that all promises will be delivered on, but I think that they are showing signs of getting smarter by putting Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau in the driver's seats. And I think too, you're right, that the Star Wars IP, even the prequels, even the original trilogy, the original trilogy doesn't hold up as great as sometimes I think we pretend it does. The sequels have issues, and I still have such a love for the world that they build and the lore that is kind of shown, the depth and the care of this. It feels so alien and interesting, but there's a lot of problems. But I think now, though, and really it's because of Marvel. I think now that we've seen what Marvel has done over a 10-year period with multiple characters and worlds, and really now it's like, okay, we've seen that you can do this right. And we feel like the Star Wars IP deserves it to be done at that level, right? I think the Star Wars IP, has more potential than Marvel. And that's just my personal feelings and bias towards it, I think. But I wasn't that interested in Marvel until these movies started happening, and I love it. I'm already incredibly invested in Star Wars. If you can Marvelize the way you present them and tell the stories, it can be like the only thing the world talks about again. You know what I mean? Like Star Wars can be that. And that's exciting. But I agree. We're not out of the water yet.
No, I think you're right. The thing that I think about a lot is, who is their Kevin Feige? And of course, we know that's John and Filoni. The thing that I keep running over in my head is how long can Favreau do this before he wants to do other projects? And you still have Filoni and these other people. It does feel like, I think it's Deborah Chow. She did, she's directed an episode last season, and now she gets to do the whole Obi-Wan show. So it's kind of like, it's almost like Star Wars boot camp, and then you're sending them off. But it's also in my head, I'm like, when is the ball going to be dropped again? It kind of like always going. And I don't know, maybe that's a little pessimistic to look at it, but
I think they've earned our pessimism a little bit. Yeah. I think they've earned it. But I agree. But again, because the Filoni and Favreau name is in the executive producer on all of these things, it gives me a lot of hope and hope that they are going to have a Kevin Feige level of influence, which is, I think, what you need. You need someone at that top level that's overseeing everything, that just makes sure it's hitting the mark and making sure you're hiring the right people to get it there. And it's people management in the end. I think that's the best thing Kevin Feige's done, is be able to manage the mega stars they've had in all these movies on top of these directors and directing teams. Like that's what has made Marvel what it is. And that's what we need for Star Wars, for sure.
Let's go ahead and start diving into these episodes. And there's a few things that we touched upon a little bit, but a few things that I kind of want to dive deeper into. One, in the Believer. I guess you said there are people have thought that it was a filler episode. I never really took that. I think it was because of those character moments that you mentioned, Daniel. So let's talk about Pedro Pascal out of the helmet. Him doing his little acting bit and kind of, just bringing so much gravitas and nuance to this really intense scene. And also I want to talk about seeing the flip side of the coin, the stormtroopers, cheering whenever the tanker manages to get past the tribes.
It was an interesting.
And let's talk about that, because it seems like It brings up that Clerks question where how many people are on the Death Star and how many had families and got killed, you know. So let's kind of talk about that. You guys go into
they
it.
said I think they said the lines like, I've never been happier to see stormtroopers or something.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
And you do, and that's the funny
They're
thing.
TIE fighters. Yeah, well, you're
Yeah,
like,
TIE fighters.
Wait.
You feel the same way. You're aligned with him in that, and it is. See, like
Jarring. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's cool, and I've always really wanted Star Wars to explore more of the idea that, and I think, well, this is a less interesting part of the universe is that you have the Empire and they're just pure evil. Like that's an uninteresting villain. Like I've always wanted them to explore more of the side of what the Empire did that was good for the galaxy, and you know these kinds of things to show like, hey, like both sides had some points, and maybe yes, the Empire was ultimately evil and needed to be dealt with, but it's not so black and white. And so I feel like getting even a little moment of that, I think, inspires some of that conversation. I was a big fan of it.
Yeah, I think the animated series did a pretty good job of fleshing out some of those, you know, sympathetic stories for some of the people that were like part of the Separatists or part of the Empire and stuff. But this was cool because that was one thing that Mayfield has brought up, you know, from the since we've known him, is that it's all, you know, you're either on this side or on this side, but it's all the same. And even in that episode, he was like the Empire, the Republic, you know.
Yeah. Which goes back to maybe the most interesting part of Last Jedi, which was what's his name's character? I'm blanking. His
name is DJ. His name is DJ. Don't join was his name. So.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Travis.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, and then in the very episode, you get a glimpse of being on the other side and triumphing on the other side and what that looks like and that conflict, and it was just great.
And then on the just to kind of completely flip it back over, we had this Imperial officer who was
phenomenal.
Who was Joe Chill in Batman Begins.
Yes, I remember.
He's like has to be one of the most evilest Empire people ever.
It was a great.
It was so
like,
good.
You're not dismissed.
It was like this. Yeah, I totally agree. I was like, this is one of the best evil officers of the Empire acting. Like, this is awesome. And I even thought that of, you know, the beginning of episode 16, which we'll get to, but like the way they portrayed these guys was so much more cruel in like a way
maniacal.
But in a like this makes sense. This is good. Like if you are going to be evil, this is the kind of evil you have to be like interesting.
Yeah. And they've always been based on Nazi officers and stuff like that. Yeah. But you really buy into that here. You can see the conviction. You can see that like, I'm willing to die for the Empire, and if, you know, that kind of thing. And like, I did love that. Sorry. The episode with the first one with Bo-Katan with the guy with the shocker tooth.
He was great. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, that was a direct callback to Nazis there with the cyanide teeth. Exactly. But I even loved his. You know, you mentioned his Southern voice. He kind of had like a Southern. That was even. That's. I mean, I feel like every other Empire officer is British, so that just made him feel more distinct and interesting. It's great. Loved it.
You know, we've had Matt Mitchell on the show beforehand. And since I've known him since The Mandalorian has come out, he has been adamant that if Pedro Pascal or The Mandalorian takes his helmet off in the show, then he's going to lose interest and he's going to be out. That's him. Yeah. You know, he's the extreme, you know, on that, you know, for his own reasons. And I you know, after he watched it, I said, "Did it bother you?" And he said, "Not at all." And so I was kind of wanted your guys' opinion on this. When I watched it, I kind of thought a little bit like, oh, it's a little anticlimactic for me a little bit, considering it's something that we as you know, podcasters or whatever, have put so much vocabulary on building up to this moment. And it was just kind of like this, not many people were around, X, Y, and Z. How did you guys feel about it? Was it big enough for you? Was it a big enough moment? I mean, how did it all play out for you guys?
I thought it was great. I think they didn't, I don't think it was climactic in like, in the sense of spectacle, but I think it was very climactic in the sense of drama. When they reached that point, I mean, even Mayfield was like, we're done. Like, in order to do this, like, you've got to show your face. I'm not showing my face because of this. I'm not taking that risk. And I know you're not taking that risk. So we're done. We're out of here. And Din's like, no, like we're doing this, we're moving forward. I'm going to do this. And he even goes and he tries to do it without taking his mask off. And then it's like, all right, fine. And then he commits. He doesn't like, oh, I don't know if I should do it. And like, oh, I'm not on anyone. Like he goes for it. And I think his whole worldview was disrupted by the realization that Bo-Katan and then brought that, you know, you're a child of the Watch. Like your belief system is based in a small faction that broke off of what you profess to be a part of.
Right.
And so I think that kind of shook the foundation enough for him to have these internal conversations about, should I do this? Am I willing to do this? And especially if it's, you know, the difference between saving Grogu and not, then of course he's going for it. And I think it was just, again, well executed. And when Mayfield came in there and saved him out of that situation that he was in, and saw his face and all that stuff, and was like, you know, this never happened kind of thing. Just a total bro moment.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. It really a total a character turn for Mayfield here, and I totally expect him to be in Rangers of the New Republic TV show. And I totally see that happening.
I can see him leading that show.
Him or Cara Dune and now them kind of doing their own thing.
No, don't.
Hey, I don't want it either, but she's like the only actual Ranger.
Just don't get. You're giving them ideas. Stop.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's going to probably happen. But the thing that kind of lost my train of thought for a second. Oh no, here's the thing though. Like I agree with everything you said, and that obviously these things that he was confronted with in season 2 obviously led to that moment. But the thing that I kind of wished we had was him actually discussing it beforehand. And so far, it's everyone telling him how he should feel and like what he's doing wrong. He's not ever actually like, he's listening, but he's never actually like voicing his thoughts on it. And granted, he does it. Yeah. I just wish we had something where he was kind of questioning it.
I feel like that's one of those things where the audience is smarter than writers think. You know, I don't think we need to have that to sympathize and understand his motivations and internal conflict.
Sure. Also,
you know, just from sorry, go ahead.
No, he's not a talkative character. That just would feel so out of turn, in my opinion, for who he is. He doesn't discuss things with people before he does them. He does what he fucking wants, and if they're gonna bitch about it, he'll deal with that later. You know what I mean? And he does express when he initially is talking with, you know, Bo-Katan, and they're telling them, "Oh, you're a part of this watch." He's like, "Fuck you," you know. He's like, "Yeah, I disagree. You guys are heathens, basically, or something." You know, like he doesn't have a, he doesn't, you know, immediately come around to their thinking at all. I think it's, and I agree with what you said, Travis. It wasn't necessarily a spectacle climax, and I would say even it wasn't a huge moment at a plot level. It was a kind of a minor plot moment. And a minor action that needed to be accomplished, like just getting inside, right? Like at least that part. But it was a huge in terms of character development, because it was him realizing, I think it's him putting into action what he's obviously been processing about his own clan and about what he's seen of the world and what he knows of what's right and wrong. And I think that especially has to have a huge impact on his feelings about, you know, because of Grogu, you know, and I think it even ties in with that, you know, the kind of stinger at the end of this episode where he kind of sends out that like warning message to Moff Gideon, which is a little fun. It's like a little bit like, it's a little bit like, this feels like a little bit like a Saturday morning cartoon for just a minute. You know, like, I'm gonna get you and you have no idea what's in store. Like,
it was his Taken moment, you know.
Exactly. But it also feels like that moment makes more sense now because you've understood the processes that he's going through, and he now understands that Grogu is the most important thing to him, and he's decided that he's made a conscious decision to let everything else go to the wayside because of him.
Let the past
there is there is like a little scene, I can't remember what episode, it's a couple episodes before these last two or whatever, where he's eating with Grogu. And it's a subtle thing, but he takes his helmet off and you see his chin, and he's like
drinking something, I think.
Yeah. And then they cut to Grogu, who's like,
yeah.
And that's like a small little subtle thing of his brain. He's doing little things that maybe he's, you know, more open to or whatever. So I'll give you guys that for sure.
Yeah,
I do think that I do think the telecommunicating your plan to the bad guy at the end and losing the surprise element, it was kind of not super great. It worked out for them.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked. It's like the most thing I can well, it's not the most I can complain about. There's one other thing I'll complain about once we get to the next episode. But it was a minor complaint. But it did just feel a little cartoonish.
There's that, and even you could argue that the face sign-in thing is just a plot device to push that.
Oh yeah,
and it is,
sure.
but it didn't bother me too much.
No.
The Liam Neeson taken moment at the end is purely just a hype builder, and
exactly.
I think, like Daniel said, just reinforcing that understanding of where his priorities lie now and how strongly he feels about them and his conviction, and pretty much like it's about to go down.
Right.
So, and it built hype, and I got hype. So
sure. Now this episode was directed by Rick Fumiyama, who is the same director as the previous Bill Burr episode, which is probably my favorite episode of season 1. Was the Bill Burr one.
Yeah, the heist one.
I thought this episode overall was great. The action was really cool. We got some insights into the other side. Of course, big moments with Mando. Is there anything else you guys want to kind of touch upon before we move on to the next episode?
I love Finnick. I think she's great. She's a very cool character. I'm excited to see her more in the Bad Batch and in Book of Boba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, she's gonna be in the Bad Batch as an animated character?
She's in the teaser trailer.
Huh. I must have missed
that. Go back and look, and they show her like at a younger age or whatever. She's wearing a helmet, and then she's come out and confirmed that her character's in it.
That's cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Super cool.
I love that crossover. All right, guys, let's get to the big mamma jamma. So, The Rescue, directed by Peyton Reed, who, if you don't know, he directed in the MCU at least, he directed Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he also directed episode 2 of The Mandalorian this season, which was the Traveler, which had the Frog Lady in it, and the Big Spider.
Okay.
So he
the monster
was also
one.
Yeah, which is also another amazingly well directed episode.
Mm-hmm.
And had more little moments of humor and kind of
it's a very its own thing. It feels like a very unique episode across both seasons.
Yeah.
Now, so when you guys had watched this before me, and I was waiting on Katie, and I had went dark on the internet for like 2 days straight, and I'd even saw Mark Hamill say, "Have you seen?" I turned on Twitter. The only thing I saw before I got off Twitter was Mark Hamill's tweet. "Have you seen anything good on TV lately?" And I was like, "Man, this must be a great episode." And I got off Twitter.
Wow.
It did.
That's the real miracle.
Lucky. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it is. And then, because I didn't think that they would do it. And then Jason from Agency 501, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I'm very confused about the timeline of this." And he never messaged me anything. And so in my head, I'm like, Jason doesn't know Star Wars well enough. So there must be some old character that come back that's confusing him timeline-wise. And so I was like, man, I don't know what's going on here. And then whenever the X-Wing come across, I literally said out loud, it was like at 1:00 in the morning. I said, "Don't do it to me." I said, don't give me hope, Disney.
No. I sat up in my chair. I said, "Oh my God!" Like when that because it was just like, no, they fucking did. Like that was like that was just like, there's no, you didn't do this. You didn't, and they did. I mean, I agree. Like that moment
it got to the point that it was like, if it's not Luke, I will be angry because of this.
Once the X-Wing got there, you're like, that's the only one it can. I mean, they literally said when she said that line, and it just was the best line. One X-Wing? Great, we're saved. And you're just like, yes, you are. You're fucking
Gideon,
saved.
and he's like,
and Grogu starts going to the monitor and like touching it while he's making his way up. Man, what a finale to do it. But I want to back up because, like I said, I rewatched the first probably 20 minutes of the episode, and you're right. When Luke gets there, you kind of forget everything else because it's such a magical moment. But the beginning of the episode is so good. Like the first scene when they're taking the shuttle. And again, you've got that one Imperial officer that takes him and shoots his other, co-pilot because he's not, he's going to give himself up, and is like, making fun of the Alderaan burning and like, the destroy. It's like, that was so good. Like, I loved it. It just felt so sinister in a really interesting way. And then they jump, and it's when they're picking up Bo-Katan and Fett and Bo's sidekick, when they're going back and forth about like, oh, I've heard your voice 1,000 times before, like them acknowledging the Clone Wars in such a cool way and bringing that back in, and then having them fight, so fucking cool. Like this could have been in a separate episode. I think we would have been talking about this shit a ton if it was kind of in its own separate episode. Like, I was just like, it's so, again, it's like they're acknowledging what the fandom has grown to love because of the Clone Wars, and the people that have grown up with the prequels. And it's like, you're making it cool again. Like you're talking about clones and in a cool way. And everyone's like, this is fucking awesome. I don't know. I love it.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Doug Stan's like, all right, make this convincing or whatever. And he's like, don't worry about me, princess. Or something like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't mention about the last episode, but it kind of applies to both. Just watching and listening to Tamora Morrison, just
like music
in dialogue and all this stuff, and just hearing Din say, Fett, set coordinates for this, and he's like, affirmative or whatever. Like,
it's so good. It feels like
we've got company.
The
like,
best kind of Star Wars again. You know what I mean?
He's so. Ugh.
And they could just. The funny thing is, they can use him again, and I wonder if they'll use him again for Rex in Ahsoka's show, because Rex
100%.
was alive in the Rebels, and they get together with Rex and the few other of Anakin's officers that survived Order 66, and they're like on a planet fighting against the Empire, and I'm pretty sure they survived to the end of the show. At least Rex did. So like, I'm all about Tamora Morrison playing multiple like clone-based characters in the universe. I think that'd be fucking awesome.
I mean, timeline-wise, theoretically, could show up in Obi-Wan. I don't know what direction they're planning on taking that.
A lot of characters could show up in Obi-Wan. Yeah. Which, I mean, and that's a whole. I mean, the fact that Hayden Christensen is coming to Obi-Wan confirmed, and like the fact that
that's a whole other podcast right there.
Very well may get flashbacks of the Jedi Temple Purge, and Grogu might be in those scenes.
Yeah. I think our Grogu questions will be answered in Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah.
No, so there's some big standout things, obviously. There was the Cara Dune and Fennec and all them kind of storming the station, which everyone really grabbed onto. And nothing I really thought about too much in Endgame, but everyone kind of pokes at the female centric scene and like kind of put. And kind of makes fun of it or says it's bad. And
I think it's a little on the nose.
It's contrived.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
They say, okay, all of you in all of your places on the battlefield, I need you to come here at this moment, and then we're gonna
girl power
walk this way.
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
To be fair, I still enjoy it every time I watch it. I still think it looks badass and it's cool. So
it is, but it's just no matter what. Movie or story or anything, and I love the sentiment and I love what they're trying to do. Yeah, but anytime that it's forced, it's just a little insulting, because that kind of thing should and can happen organically, like it did in Mandalorian. Right. Like it wasn't forced; it was just these badass women doing what they do as a part of the plan, not because they were like, oh, we're going to put all our ladies over here and we're going to come in with our lady power and stuff. It was just like, we're going to storm the ship and take the thing and you go here and we do this. Like, it felt right. Like it was cool. And I didn't even realize it until later. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that was all the ladies and it was awesome.
I agree. It was a fucking awesome action sequence. And you're right. It's like I didn't feel like I noticed it, but in like a good way. I guess, it was
exactly.
like,
same.
It just feels like it's a natural, awesome moment by characters that I care about, and their gender isn't a factor in what I'm viewing and perceiving anywhere. But
it was cool.
And another thing, of course, obviously, is while they're doing that, is we get Mando versus Moff Gideon, and he's got the Grogu with the Darksaber.
Well, before that though is Mando versus Dark Trooper.
You're
just
right,
the one
sorry.
trooper. Yeah.
The Dark
Yeah,
Trooper,
yeah.
and
Which-
getting and launching them into out of the air.
They're like, I was like, that can't be it, man. Like,
No,
all this
exactly. I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
Trooper
but they're
buildup.
droids. I was
Yeah.
like, they're droids with. We've seen them fly like Iron Man.
He's like, boop. Well, that was easy. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I knew they were coming back. You're right. That really showed the Dark Troopers and how much
How
power
deadly
they
they are. Yeah.
whenever he's getting his head smashed into the wall, you're like,
Oh
holy
my God.
shit.
That was visceral. Like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, there was
I
just
was impressed
visceral
with
action.
the Dark Trooper power and with the durability of that helmet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah. There's
You're
moments
right.
where I'm like,
I thought the
how
like
is he
glass
not
part was gonna
dead?
break. Like,
Yeah. No, it was.
There's some
He got the shit beat out of him more than
Yeah.
I think he's ever been. On the
the
show.
fight choreo was really great.
that was great. It really was.
I love
but-
how he just knows how to use the spear, and it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm a badass at everything.
Yeah.
What really this Moff Gideon versus Mando thing, this fight does is really paint to me the future of Mandalorian and all these other characters because of the Darksaber. And it's something that we knew was obviously in the season 1, this would be a huge thing going forward. And the rival Bo-Katan this season, and then this episode specifically, kind of set up some new rules, I guess, or some new plot devices of how the Darksaber works almost, right?
Was its function in Mandalorian culture, kind of is what you're saying?
Well, I think one thing that really wasn't in the animated show from all the things I've been watching is that you don't have to basically disarm somebody or defeat somebody in combat to get it. Because I believe Bo-Katan got it at one point without. I think Sabine gives it to her. I think or something
But I
like
think
that.
it's-
She
if it-
found it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's something weird like that. And
Well, when they said it,
anyway.
isn't it like kind of like you have to defeat the owner of it in a challenge in order to claim the
way
throne?
that it was explained is that part of the whole emphasis of the Darksaber and it being connected to the ruler is the story. So
Right.
the fact that this ruler obtained the Darksaber through triumph in some spectacular manner just contributes to the respect for their seat of power and all that kind of stuff. So if she took it and like took the throne, they'd have been like, oh, Bo-Katan, she found the
Shit
thing.
story.
Yeah,
It's it feels almost Viking-esque in that kind of cultural way of like songs of the victories that you did and like that kind of way. But yeah, no,
and
I'm
wish
sure they'll
they could have
explain
just
it
been like,
further.
you know what, I'll take it. Let's just pretend like I beat you, and are we all good here? Like,
I wish Mando had been like, oh, sorry, I tripped and I lost here. Dang.
Well, I mean, he really was like,
I
I don't want to take it. And she has this like, I have to either. It wasn't so much almost remorse. It was kind of like, fuck, now I got to defeat you or kill you or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I thought at moments she looked like she might have attacked him at a couple points. Like just
I was
then and
ready
there.
for it.
like if the rest of that scene didn't play out in the way that it did, it
Yeah.
might have gone down like in that cockpit.
Yeah.
Because she's been looking for this thing for God knows how long, and there it is.
Yeah.
And here's the situation. I feel like that's not a huge cognitive leap for her to get to where she wants to be. But now I'm really curious to see what happens next.
Mhm.
I mean, and I guess it's got to, I mean, depending on the timeline of the Boba series, because they did technically do a time leap in the finale of when Boba and Fennec are back on Tatooine and do that thing. So sometime between the Star Destroyer cockpit and that something played out in this moment. And I don't know how we can, I don't know how we can not show it unless basically it's one of those things of like, well, we're all going to go our separate ways, but know that I'm going to be coming back and looking for you and getting that Darksaber.
Yeah, it
but I
feels
don't
like
know if I
something would have
see
had to
that.
happen. Well, Fett isn't even there. He just drops him off.
He leaves right in time for Luke to come. They're probably passing each other like, oh shit, there's the guy who defeated me 5 years ago.
It's like that. It's like that meme from. Have y'all watched the Umbrella Academy?
Yeah.
Where they're like, what the? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do let we're kind of
Or
back to
do
the
you
Luke
think?
moment.
Do you think they're going to fall in love, and that she'll be queen? Because
I mean, if they can do it right,
they get married and she's the ruler. I honestly
I've never thought
I think
of that.
it's so cool to think about him being the ruler of Mandalore.
Yeah,
Me
it
too.
is.
I think
And like that's what we've been watching is the origin of the new nation of Mandalore, basically.
seeing
I mean,
him kind of like
he's
grow
the
into that
Mandalorian.
mantle,
I mean, that's his name. People call him Mando.
the Mandalorian becoming the Mandalore.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly.
I mean, I love it, and
That's
just
what I'm
selfishly,
voting for. But
I love it, and selfishly, I want to see that. Do you think it would be a disservice to Bo-Katan and her arc and her?
I
guess
think
it
they would
already-
only do. I think they would only do it if he had her blessing in some way
Yeah.
Or
through
she
the
dies.
storyline, or she dies.
Yeah.
Or
And
through
I-
the storyline of season 3.
And I think it will be him because he doesn't want it. And that's
Yeah,
like
I
often
hope so.
That's like the mark of
worthy
true
ruler,
leadership,
right, is one that does not seek power. So I
Yeah.
feel like they're setting him up to kind of be the perfect ruler or something like that. And that's
a
really and at that
good
point, once
one.
that happens, you're like, okay, now we're into like feature film territory as far as what to happen next. Once where there's like a new nation of Mandalore potentially. But guys, now we're kind of back in the Luke Skywalker territory. I will say, I was a bit let down when it wasn't Sebastian Stan. Like as he's walking up and like the action was so cool, and I've seen those gifs mirroring Vader's moment in Rogue One with how
Amazing.
Luke fought them, and it's like it made it even better. Like realizing that it was just like, of course they fucking did because they love us. You know what I mean? And it was just so, even like the smoke and the green lightsaber. Oh, it was too good. But
it was like it was like the Jedi version of that scene. Like
Exactly.
even his fight choreography was like poetic and
Yes.
just so smooth.
it wasn't
and
as aggressive.
visceral, like
Yes, it was
Yeah.
more like a dance. It was more fluid and water-like, like a dance. And
It
it
was like-
looked a lot like how he fights in the original trilogy, just not as
way
hokey.
better.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. They
more refined and more master
Yes.
Jedi.
they
Yeah.
took the hokey nature of what they did back then and made it into an intentional style, and it was perfect.
There is
But
one
man-
thing though that it really adds to, like, I think a little bit of darker side to Luke though. Like you can kind of see, oh yeah, this is the same Luke that almost toys with striking out the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. He's got kind of this ferociousness.
he's really
to
fucking
his,
to
his moves. He's got some.
when you
tenacity
think
to him.
about what one of those droids did to Mando, and that he literally wiped out a battalion of them
what's happening right now
by
So
himself.
good.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of illustrates the power differential there between a master Jedi and one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the universe.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome. That's what I want to see. Like that's what you want to feel like, is the master Jedis are like that fucking badass. Like you don't fucking mess with them unless you want to die. Like that's what you want to feel like, I think. But yes, when I saw his face, I was a little let down. It looked good for the most part. There was one moment where he kind of like changed angles, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at Oblivion right now on the Xbox 360. Like that's what I thought. I was like, ooh. Like he just changed his angle,
Yeah.
like looks dead on or something, and it was like, eesh. But
Yeah.
the moment still worked because of everything else around it.
Well, I'll say
Yeah,
this.
I was
I
happy.
think I agree. I was very curious. As soon as we knew it was Luke, it's like, okay, how are they going to present him to us? Is it going to be, Mark Hamill? Is it going to be Sebastian Stan or somebody else we don't know of?
I knew
And
it couldn't be
it's kinda
Mark
brings up-
Hamill. I knew it was
Well,
like, there's no
well,
way.
But
Well,
with
I mean-
de-aging tech, like what they did with Samuel Jackson, like
Sure.
You're right.
it's
And that's what I mean.
really good.
And Mark Hamill was on set for this. Actually, he was there. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually physically doing the part, but he was there to kind of supervise. But this brings up a thing here. Is that to me? I was like,
I think
okay,
it was his voice, and they did
It
de-aging
is.
on his voice. Yeah.
They did. I think to me it signifies, okay, if it was Sebastian Stan, my brain was kind of doing this. If it's Sebastian Stan, we might get a Luke Skywalker TV show, and we might get Luke more in the future. If it's Mark Hamill, then it might be like, oh, there's a one-time off kind of thing, because it might be really hard to get Mark Hamill back every time we want to do this, obviously. I don't know. It kind of a little bummer that way. I was like, man, they did the de-aging thing, so it seems like they're not really willing to recast him, because that was the time to do it if you were going to do it. So
Unless they were concerned with it getting out, because if Sebastian Stan was anywhere close to that set,
That'd been
we
hard.
would have known about it
That'd been hard to keep
in
under
some
wraps.
way. So I think, and I mean, even since then, I mean, fans pretty much cast Rosario Dawson. Fans have had a lot of success with kind of shaping, at least in recent years, kind of what's happening in Star Wars. And so it's no secret that Sebastian Stan would be great for it.
Even Marvel,
Mark Hamill has come out and said basically he's got his blessing to take the part, and like
the pictures,
all the pieces are set, man. It's all there.
If you look at you can just Google Sebastian Stan like Luke Skywalker, and there's a great one where it's just one of the images from like Luke, and it's literally just Sebastian's face and hair, and everything else is changed the same, and it's almost identical. It's just like it's just sitting there on a platter. Like you have an established actor that's already being paid by your studio or by your parents' studio. Just make him come over to our house tonight. You know what I mean? Like that's all we need.
Yeah. Well, they did that with Chris Evans and the Buzz Lightyear series.
Yeah.
Like, so they're already kind of borrowing talent between the studios.
Yeah.
I do want to get into, I guess I kind of jumped into the future, but
sorry,
go ahead.
This last on. I do think Benedict Cumberbatch would make a bad fucking A Master Jedi, like Qui-Gon type at some point. Like he could.
I think it'd be awesome. People have said he'd be a great Thrawn, but I think
he needs to be a Sith or a Jedi Master. I think
the thing about Thrawn, the guy who voices him, would be perfect on screen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so if so. Just like with Bo-Katan, like if that voice actor can pull off the physicality of the role, they know the part better than anybody ever possibly could at this point.
Yeah.
And so I think he would be dope. His name escapes me now, but he looks the part too. Like it's wild.
All I have to say is I am hungry. I just think Benedict Cumberbatch has that, like, even like, you know, his Sherlock acting kind of has that like subdued emotionalness of a lot of like Master Jedi types, where it's very clinical and just like focused on like, you know, just, I don't know. I just think he would do a great Jedi and just him with a Padawan and a lightsaber. I just want that. I just want a Benedict Cumberbatch Jedi movie or something.
I want it too. It sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
And bring him an acolyte.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting TV show too. We can talk about that as well. The one thing we really need to talk about here is the kind of the big dramatic moment here. Even though Luke arrives, and it's like it's kind of hard, like you said, Daniel, earlier. Like once that happens, it's like you forget about everything else. But right after that, we have, you know, Mando taking off his helmet and saying goodbye to Baby Yoda, and it's a amazing Star Wars moment. The whole thing.
He's like, he doesn't want to go. He wants to see.
Yeah. No, I
mean, he wants your permission, like he wants your blessing.
But then you have R2 coming out and basically making him feel good, and you start getting all these things. You get R2, you get Yoda, like actual Master Yoda from Return of the Jedi. You get, and I sent this text to you guys. I'm getting chills thinking about it. You get Luke watching a father and a son, you know, seeing each other, and he just saw his father take off his mask and saw his father with his own eyes for the first time 5 years previously, and now he is seeing Baby Yoda see his dad's eyes for the first time. There's something poetic about that, and it was intentional 100%, and it's amazing.
There's a reason this episode is ranked up there with Ozymandias from Breaking Bad, and, you know, a few episodes from The Wire and Sopranos and stuff like that. I mean, it was so touching, and I think it was unexpected too. I mean, Donovan, I know you and I, when we were talking about, you know, the last time we did the Mandalorian episode, we said there's no way, you know, we were even complaining, like the stakes, right? Like we know Baby Yoda's going to live, so the stakes don't feel real. And I mean, the show doesn't go on without Baby Yoda and Mando. I mean, it's the show, is them. And so there's no way. And for them to do it, and to do it in such a heartfelt, intentional way. And I mean, the whole show's been leading up to this moment with Mando, like the whole season 1 and 2 has led up to this emotional moment with Din Djarin. and it pays off perfectly. It's so good. And it's like this happens. And you're like, I don't think I knew Star Wars could be this like emotionally touching. And like, it's good.
I mean, I was a puddle on the floor. And I mean, just at the end of the scene, just the slow pull out of everybody in the cockpit, just standing there, and just how the whole galaxy like pauses and just is processing, absorbing, and witnessing this happen. Like everything from the moment the X-Wing came and docked in there, like I challenge you to go pull up the music on Spotify or Apple Music and find the track of when Luke shows up, listen to it, and not have goosebumps over your entire body. Because the way that just slowly like came in, and how like in the edit, the cuts and everything slowed down, and just like the way that from a craft standpoint, like how they did that whole sequence just reinforced that tone, that energy, and just made the reveals that much even better. And those emotional moments in the end where he finally like gave his son away, and it was just cool.
I think
it was the most special like Star Wars moment probably of my life. You know,
I can't think of an emotional moment from any of the other movies that comes close.
I think the shot, which is the last shot in the episode, when you have Luke and R2 and he holds Baby Yoda, that wide shot, when I saw that, and every time I see it afterwards, I think to myself, that's the most Star Wars-y shot I've seen since the original trilogy. Just the framing of it, the placement of characters, it feels like the end of the original trilogy. It feels like
the celebration or the award ceremony.
Yeah, there's something about it, and I'm not sure if it's even the lens they use and the amount of grain. It's just like, I'm like, man, that is Star Wars right there. You know, it's kind
awesome.
of amazing.
It is.
Yeah, somebody asked earlier, there was like, you know, what's been your favorite on-screen Star Wars moment this year? And from like an emotional, impactful type of experience like this, season 7 of Clone Wars, the finales.
That's true.
Pretty close.
That's okay.
For me at least.
You're right. That I really wasn't considering animated when I was thinking through that. And no, you're absolutely right. Like that was a really poignant and touching episode.
Yeah. For us growing up, seeing Order 66, seeing all that stuff, knowing what's happening after knowing all these characters and stuff, like.
Yes.
Yeah, it did it for me. But I think this was on another level still. It was so good.
Well, there's something about, like, even though it does kind of happen with the sequel trilogy, where we have a continued story with characters we know, there's something different about having that with a material that you really enjoy and you don't know where it's going. Like with the prequels, we had an idea of where it was going, right? We knew what was happening.
We know the end goal or the end situation.
The sequel trilogy comes out and we're excited, but it doesn't like actually hit that thing that this episode did for us, because we're like, man, we wanted that. That's what we wanted. And even Mark Hamill come out and he said in a tweet this last couple of days, he said, thank you, Dave and John, John and Dave, for giving me the gift I didn't know I wanted. And I'm like, Mark, you did want that. You've been very vocal about it.
You said that in many interviews prior to The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and I think it was a more of even a statement of like, hey, we did it. He almost has closure now. If he had to walk away from it, that was the final thing he could have done as Luke Skywalker and be content with it. So,
and that if that is Luke Skywalker's final on-screen appearance, it's a good.
But agreed. And he did. I think another thing he came out and said was like, I'd be open to it, or like I would love to, if there's ever another opportunity.
I mean,
that's where I'm going with next, is so that we know that, like you said, Daniel, Grogu is with Luke now, Master Luke. And
it gives us a big ass reason to go visit him on screen.
Yeah, it does, but also you kind of wonder, okay, obviously he didn't get killed when Ben Kenobi.
No.
Yeah. Or Ben Solo is doing his
I think
thing.
there's
no
even
way he killed him.
confirmation in it. Like someone found a way to confirm it that like he was already gone from there in some way. I don't know.
Well,
I haven't
technically,
seen that, and I don't know that. I hope and pray that
Well,
they don't go that
I mean,
route.
but there's
in
also
the-
the fact that in the book about the Last Jedi, like
yeah, he doesn't kill
not all
anybody.
not all his Padawans die. Some
No,
escape.
he didn't.
Yeah, because he took the others to be the Knights of Ren.
No.
Well,
Some
in
of
the-
them
in the-
chased after him. They
in the
chased
comic,
after the Knights
yeah.
of Ren to capture them and get revenge.
Yeah. In the comic, he doesn't even actually destroy the temple. It's Palpatine's lightning that destroys it. And then he kind of is like, oh shit, what's happening? And then some of the students go after him. This come out right after Last Jedi, the comic did.
Yeah.
And before
I
Rise
know
of
that
Skywalker.
is that I know they have like the novelizations of the movies are canon.
It's the comics are canon too. It's
Yeah,
all
they're
canon now.
They're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I think the
supposed
books.
to be.
I think it's an adaptation of what happens in the books too. Is that he didn't actually destroy the temple. He kind of got framed for it by the Emperor, and Luke kind of wakes up after all his Padawans are gone.
It's true. He didn't
And
witness
it's just
exactly
blown up.
what happened.
So he just
Yeah.
assumes they're dead and assumes Ben killed them. And all
Yeah,
this kind
and
of
cuts
stuff.
himself off from the Force, so has no way of knowing. And
Right.
Which brings me to the thing. Is there a way that we're going to retcon the sequel trilogy here? Are they going to double down? Or are they going to do some type of what are they going to do?
There is
I
a
don't
way.
think they
There is
will.
a
There's totally a
lore.
way.
There's a lore friendly door open for it
There
with
is.
Ezra Bridger and with
Yes.
what happens in the Rebels show and how he saves Ahsoka. So the door is there in a way that Disney is already comfortable using, at least animated wise, and at least a minor-ish character.
Did you guys
I
watch that
don't
video
think
I
it's
sent you?
likely. I don't think it's likely.
I did.
You
I
did?
did. What video? I don't
The-
remember.
Yeah, he's in a
look-
video basically explaining what you're talking about. That just goes into depth on that
On the
world between
Wills.
worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think they could. I feel like, I think even Dave Filoni came out and said that they don't have plans to like retcon the sequel trilogy. And even before like
Surprised
Mandalorian
he
was
didn't acknowledge it.
released, I think they came out and said that this will explain the rise of the First Order and some of the lingering questions like of how we even got here in Force Awakens. So based on kind of what he
Yeah.
did with the Clone Wars and working to kind of preserve the canonization of the prequels while redeeming a lot of aspects of them through more narrative exploration and storytelling and stuff. I feel like that's the direction they're going to take.
I think you're probably right, and I think that what I
But-
just thought about is when Fett goes up above those clouds in episodes 7 of this season, or was it 13 or whatever, and says
The Empire's back.
the Empire, they're back, and you're like, who did you think the stormtroopers you've been fighting for a whole season are?
Yeah.
Were they
I
not
think
the
I-
Empire? Like,
Yeah.
because
I
of
remember
that,
and I think
I agree with what you're saying.
I think that he knew like, there's a remnant, like there's people in stormtrooper outfits that still are doing bad stuff, but I don't think he had personally seen the organization on the scale of what he previously saw.
But it felt like the way
it-
that they treated the line, it felt like everybody was like,
Well, that it was solely a discovery for Boba Fett and Finnick. That was their discovery.
I
Like, then-
agree, but it felt like the way they cut to other characters, it felt like
well,
it was
they just cut to Finnick, and she was the one who was like, "What?" Because like they were the only ones
Okay.
who hadn't had these
Okay.
other encounters.
maybe
and
you're
stuff.
right. Maybe you're right. I'm maybe misremembering.
I think you're both right. I just think that it was executed poorly and gives us the same feeling that you had, Daniel. Because I felt the same way. I was like, "What?" I was very confused.
Yeah.
But there, even with the guy Joe Chill talking to Bill Burr, he says we got to bring back order, and then we have the Snoke bodies in episode 3
Yeah,
this year.
Right.
So even though I want, like, there's a part of me that's like, just do it, just because I want to see Luke Skywalker versus Admiral Thrawn and all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like.
I think
what they're gonna do is just. I don't think they're gonna retcon the sequels. I think they're just going to explore Star Wars in totally different avenues
I hope
that
that's
they
true.
have total control of, and that they can redeem in the sense of movie quality, story
Yeah.
quality, characters, all these things that we want to see.
I don't
'cause
necessarily. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I think and hope that we're kind of getting ready to kind of tie a bow on the Skywalker saga. I mean, there's a lot of time frame here to explore it with the Obi-Wan series and a lot of these initial stuff, but
Yeah, and Anakin will be in that.
I don't know. With the whole Thrawn storyline and stuff
Right.
like that, it seems like that is kind of the next step there.
In terms
That's
of
gonna
the
be-
Imperial story, I agree. I mean, that feels like the next thing that's going to kind of explain things. And I will say I don't have as much faith in them being able to redeem the sequels like they did with the prequels in terms of like the Clone Wars, because I think the prequels had a much better foundation to build on for expanding.
They had a through line, so that's
Well, it was George Lucas.
a consistent world and a consistent characters to. They were consistently bad at times, but they were consistent, and that's easier to expand on and build off of, and you can kind of take those base elements and just tell a better story, and you're kind of improving what's already there.
I think I don't know. I despise the lack of planning in the sequels, and
that I think is their biggest.
I have so many problems with, like, I'm a pretty vocal Last Jedi hater, and just and know and recognize that the Rise of Skywalker is highly problematic and lots of stuff like that. We just didn't get the trilogy we could have.
Yeah, I think that's the most frustrating thing is the gap between the potential and what we got. The potential was the potential is fucking Infinity War Endgame.
So when I think of ways that it could be redeemed, any way that you could, reinforce the gaps in information that we have that would help justify a lot of the character decisions, that would help justify a lot of the like plot directions and stuff, because like there's some massive gaps in the conclusions that we have to jump to for certain characters, for certain plot elements, and it's
a patch job. It's
hard.
Totally a patch job.
And all the things that they gotta fix is, like, example, I think, okay, I don't think they're going to retcon. Here's why: because Carrie Fisher passed away. Yeah, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to recast.
A lot of people would say that's disrespectful.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to recast Princess Leia. They've already did it with Han Solo, but I feel like that experience really scared Disney off
because they lost so much money or didn't make so much.
Yeah,
money,
I actually don't hate the movie. I think it's just kind of like it's good, not great.
It's average.
It was poor timing. I think also.
It was.
And I do think it had a lot more
yeah.
potential. I still feel that
sure.
way too. I still feel like some of the ways they like, oh, you're by yourself, so you're Han Solo. Like it's just like,
yeah.
I don't have.
That's what I thought it was when I was probably 5. You know what I mean? That's probably what I thought is what his name was. Because
I honestly would love to see a Solo 2 with just some of the story points that they left open.
Sure.
I think it could be cool.
Fucking Maul. Maul was in it. Maul was in the movie. Sometimes I forget that they've reintroduced Darth Maul, and that's just still hanging over there, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and no, exactly. That's where I think we won't get a true new sequel, and I think they're going to kind of carve out their own path. But it kind of raises up the question, though, like, okay, obviously we're going to have to see Luke Skywalker again if Grogu is out there. I doubt they're going to have like it's Luke's hand handing off Grogu to somebody. Like I would hate that. I think that would be like so bad, like.
Yeah, they can only do what they did so much. And just like having all of this dialogue and like 5% of it being him saying it because they're just cutting the other stuff because they don't want to show all the CGI all the time.
But it gets problematic.
I don't think they will.
No. That, we talked about this a lot, Daniel, is that, of course, the number one person to come reach out to find Grogu is Luke Skywalker, but they won't do it because of X, Y, and Z. Now that they've opened up the universe to that can of worms. So it's almost like, how do you not? Now we know Luke Skywalker's around. How does he not
see him? How do you not see
How do you
him?
not see? Yeah, it's kind of an issue.
How is he
Maybe
not fighting Thrawn too?
Yeah, why would he
and all
not
those other
be fighting
things?
Thrawn? Yeah, it's an issue, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think it's like, because, well, I think they're going to, one of the big leaps in characters I was talking about is Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Like, it's a massive cognitive leap from the last place that we see Luke to there, seeing him, sad, depressed, cutting off from the Force, and just not just running into hiding, but having his entire like worldview turned upside down, and he's just kind of an a-hole and stuff. And so I think, and they could have done it in The Last Jedi too, like if they just invested a little bit more into that exposition, maybe even via flashbacks, but just like,
or it also invested into what his issues were with the Jedi, because they're very surface level and aren't detailed or explored.
Right. And we talked about this recently. I mean, one of the things Daniel said was like, one of the ways I could possibly see him getting to that place is the death of Leia, or something that was like that close to his central core of who he is, being shooken in some way. Like that, as an audience, we would understand that. That's what made him snap in the Return of the Jedi against Vader, seeing Leia threatening stuff. But like those are things that we understand and know about the character that could have been referenced and stuff. But
right.
Anyway, so filling in some of those gaps would help. I still wouldn't like it, because I think they could have creatively gone a better story direction for that character. Even if his death and fading into the sunset is beautiful and cinematic and still, pulls at your heartstrings just because you love him, we could have had a lot more. Yeah. And especially, in the prequels, seeing all these super old people being super badass with lightsabers in Master Jedi form and doing all these amazing things, like, he could have done it. I mean, they had him get into super shape for this movie and then didn't have him do anything.
And gave him giant, thick robes.
Yeah.
And, he
lost, I think 100 pounds or something. Like he was so stoked, and then was
his Force Ghost self is a little chunkier. And so I guess you can, eat Twinkies when you're in Force Ghost, I guess. But one thing I want to get into today is...
That's a deep rabbit hole. We can get back to...
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. So that was the stinger at the end of this episode. And now we know that...
stinger.
Yeah.
That just felt its own...
direction, like...
It just felt such its own flavor and its own style. Like, it felt like you were watching, like... I don't know. It felt like it was like the Sons of Anarchy in Star Wars kind of moment.
It's a taste of the new tone. It's a taste of what that show's going to feel like and look like and be like. I mean, they introduced his musical theme in the episode where Grogu reaches out on the rock.
Yeah.
When he comes in with the armor, the music has that new. I mean, his theme is at the end of the episode, and it's just so sweet.
They've been killing it with all the music. Killing it. The Mandalorian's theme is one of my favorite Star Wars tracks, I think. The music's been great. But yeah, I just loved that stinger and the tone it set, and just that final shot of him sitting on that throne, and just kind of like, I can't wait to see what will happen in his series.
Yeah, Ludwig Göransson is the new John Williams. And I think they've got to stick with
figure that out. I hope so. I hope they figured that out.
Let's talk about some of these other shows coming out. So we know the way they kind of pitched this at this investor meeting was that all these shows will lead up to a basically Marvel-style crossover event.
Right.
So we have the Rangers of the New Republic. We have...
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt just because I had a hilarious thought.
Yeah.
So I picture so all these shows leading together, like they have at least one animated show. So like, what if it's a live action and have animated characters?
Framed Roger Rabbit and
that would be. I'm actually okay with it because I'm very curious.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Just a funny image, like
I mean, I'm ready at some point for our like adult animated Star Wars show, you know, like PG-13, like they've done that with Star Trek now. Star Trek has like Star Trek The Lower Decks, and it's this animated kind of for adults comedy TV show that makes fun of itself a lot. And I'm like, I would take Star Trek.
They really could, because right now they're still marketing to every generation with their content for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, kids can enjoy this stuff as well as adults. And I think that's what the needle they're having to thread right now.
The Mandalorian feels more adult than past Star Wars to me at times. Like the violence.
For sure. But in terms of like rating, you know, it's still family friendly technically.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So we have this now upcoming fall, the Book of Boba Fett. We know Mando season 3 will go into production after Boba Fett. We also have Rangers of the New Republic, and we have the Ahsoka show. That's like kind of the things that's happening in the timeline of the Mandalorian. Now, back in time, we have the Acolyte. This is a live action. The Acolyte, which is like the end of the High Republic, right, leading into the, I guess, the Old Republic, or maybe it's the old, I don't know. Anyway, it's Old Jedi. Yep. So then we also have Obi-Wan Kenobi, which we have Hayden Christensen's coming back with a rematch apparently with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
they confirmed they're going to fight?
They've confirmed they're going to fight, yeah. Which we kind of got to get into, like, how is that possible?
Definitely.
And then there's also the Orlando TV show is announced. It kind of got under the way there, but we assume Donald Glover will come back for that. And maybe
it's super weird that they didn't announce that.
And he's really busy and really popular and is doing so much already. It's hard to see him having time to be in a 8-episode, 10-episode series.
Yeah, but you got money involved. I mean, he can take out a month.
He's producing his own. He's producing, directing, and starring in his own TV show too.
Yeah,
I know. But why? I mean,
can't wait to see the new season.
You watched Atlanta?
They're working on the next 2 seasons right now, I believe.
That's one of the best shows on TV.
And then we have Andor coming out, which is the Cassian Andor television show. Takes place before Rogue One. So we have a lot of Star Wars.
And that one's
happening.
pretty soon. Or sooner.
That one,
we've seen footage of it.
That's been, I don't know if
they've shot it
finished, but it's that's going to be soon.
Yeah, so that will probably be the end of or this year, maybe next year. Anyway,
I bet it's next year, but yeah.
What do we think? What do you think about all this? I guess the big one to me is Obi-Wan Kenobi, just because Hayden Christensen is coming back. But what do we think about all these cool shows? Are they one-offs? Are they all new series or what?
Well, Rangers is a movie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No, Rangers of the New Republic's a TV show, but then also Patty Jenkins is directing Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron is the one that's a movie.
And
then we also have
now after Wonder Woman 1984. Are we still excited about that? I don't know. I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched it yet either. I kind of want someone's HBO login
reviews.
so I don't have to pay money for it.
Don't pay for that. Yeah.
But we also have the unnamed Taika Waititi Star Wars movie.
Yep, you're right.
I fucking love him. I can't wait for I'll take whatever it is. I don't give a shit. Yeah. Just give me Taika Waititi Star Wars.
We assume that's the Kevin Feige produced one, but we don't know which one Kevin Feige's producing yet. We assume it's that one, but they haven't announced
it. Would
that.
Make sense.
You would think that they would have said that already if that was the case, but they haven't said it yet.
Yeah, and I don't know what the latest is on the Rian Johnson trilogy.
I think it wasn't announced at the investor meeting.
Dissipated.
So. It wasn't announced, but they haven't come out and said
like
this is
ghost.
not happening.
I think
they don't want to have to. I don't think they want to have to do that.
I think that idea cut itself off from the Force.
You know what I see them doing? I see them saying, you know what? COVID has just been so hard and it's just disrupted.
Dude, I saw a quote the other day. There was an interview, like it was after Knives Out. It was an interview with Rian Johnson where he's talking about Knives Out. He's talking about his process and his directing and all this kind of stuff. And they were just like, how do you, what's it like for you going back and forth between directing something that's a part of a massive universe with all these the foundation set for all these different things, and then having a kind of a one-off type of thing like this. And he was basically like, I don't really care about the larger story and universe and connecting things, like that's just doesn't interest me. He's like, I just care about my story. And like, for me, that's the only thing. And I was like, how did they give this guy a Star Wars movie?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the kind of guy you give one part
To
of a
say
trilogy.
that, like, that's why people love Star Wars.
And
like,
I will say, I like Knives Out is great. I thought it was fantastic. And I think Ryan
Oh, it's
Johnson's
good.
really, I like Looper too a lot. I think Ryan Johnson.
I enjoyed Looper as well.
Like
But
Brick.
I haven't seen Brick. But yes,
Brink, the Disney Channel series.
No, Brick. It's Joseph. I like Brink also. Don't get me wrong. I love Brink. Favorite Disney Channel movie.
Boy,
but-
Ryan Johnson's Brink would be very different.
That's true.
But to go back to your original question, Donovan, I think some of these are going to be ongoing series. I could see Ahsoka going a couple, like 2 or 3 seasons.
For sure.
I doubt Obi-Wan will be any more than one, just because it's fucking Ian McGregor, and I bet he's really expensive. And the other ones, I think I think probably you're also depending a lot. They're probably going to be like, well, we'll see how well they do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I could totally see Rangers of the New Republic being 1 season if it just kind of flops or just doesn't hit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not one I think they're going to be committing to, and they're going to say we'll keep making this as long as it keeps working. Ahsoka feels like one that, even if the first season is less than what we want, people are going to be wanting a new season to make up for it, kind of a thing. You know, it's like, but they're still so invested in the character that they're still going to want more. So yeah, I think we'll get a mixed bag. Hopefully we'll get enough things that stick. I mean, it definitely feels a bit like a shotgun approach though. Let's just throw as many darts up the board and see which ones stick. But well, we'll see.
We would assume with all these announcements and with Favreau and Filoni named as executive producers that they have a plan to this big crossover event. It seems like
Right.
that, and hopefully that's what happens. Also, I wonder, is there a world where they get, or at least Favreau gets to this point, the big crossover event, his endgame, so to speak, or his Avengers, and he steps away and says, okay, I did my stamp on Star Wars. Now, Filoni, you take it and carve out the next chapter.
He has precedent of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool way of I guess, being Dave Filoni's training wheels into the live action, like, filmmaking world. Because I mean, he has excelled in animation from the Nickelodeon days to LucasArts and stuff. Like, he's got that. And I think even in the episode, like the episodes he directed in Mandalorian, you can kind of see how he could improve. And so I think him working alongside Jon Favreau, him getting all this experience with all these series and stuff, Favreau is at some point not going to get bored, but he's going to want to do other stuff. Like, he's the type of director, filmmaker who can do it all and would like to. I think at some point he's going to exit Star Wars and do something else. And if there was a guy who I could see staying with Star Wars as long as there's breath in his lungs, like, it's Dave Filoni.
Oh yeah, Filoni will die with it for sure.
And so whether it's Dave Filoni kind of solely being the story mind and the film producer mind, or if it's him partnering with another filmmaker to just basically replace Favreau, either way, I think he's the one who's protecting the integrity of the Star Wars universe and the Star Wars story. And just from a consulting standpoint, I think has impacted a lot of creative decisions with these series. And I think with Disney, like, I mean, just based on the success that they've had, like, I'm sure they've said, okay, you have a voice in this conversation now. What do you think? You know what I mean? So, and that's a good time for Star Wars to have somebody like that kind of at the mantle. So
that's great.
I'm optimistic. I think we can only get better right now. Like, I think it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
100%.
There's only 2 more things I really want to hit before we, maybe I have to cut it off. But one, just because I'm curious your guys' thoughts, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. That's the first one. And the second one, I just kind of come back to Mandalorian. Where do we go from here? Grogu's off. Where does the show go? Don't go too long-winded, but at least kind of give me your thoughts on it.
Let's do one at a time because I think I could
Sure.
talk kind of
Sure.
on both for a while. So for The Mandalorian, what I'm voting, what I would like to see, because I don't like the idea of Grogu being slain and the Ben Solo going bad
Never
thing. So I think because what Luke Skywalker says when he takes him is that until he masters his abilities, he will not be safe.
Right.
And so I really like the idea of him being in training with Luke until he reaches a competence level in the Force where he decides, I no longer want to train to be a Jedi. I want to be with my dad. And then goes back to do life, whatever that looks like with Din. And then whatever happens over here happens over here. That's kind of what I'd like to see because he says, and I think Din says something like, I'll see you again or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, he says, I think he promises like he
does.
That he'll see you again. So.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
That's what I want to see there.
I think what's immediately next is Mandalore and dealing with the siege of Mandalore. And I think that could be all of next season, or it could potentially be all of the next 2 seasons. I don't know. But I think they're going to deal with whatever big is next. And that's Mandalore is either going to happen alongside of Thrawn, kind of simultaneously, that conflict, or it's going to be like they do Mandalore and then they end up helping with Thrawn as well. And I think after whatever the team up, whatever the Marvel moment is, I think that's when Baby Yoda could get reintroduced. I think you'll have this big plot galaxy level events that are big and important. And these characters are doing these amazing things and all this stuff. And then kind of once the world, it gets settled and the dust settles after whatever event happens, then I could see like the next thing being introduced is Baby Yoda's back. And that kind of comes out of nowhere, like, kind of thing. To spurn the next season, or who knows, maybe he comes back for the team up in some way. Either way, I think we'll take a break from him and he'll do his thing for a little while, but Disney knows how much of an ace in their pocket Baby Yoda is the reason the Mandalorian is as successful as it is. I mean,
sure.
All credit to I'm blanking on his name right now, but Din, the actor for Din,
Pedro Pascal.
Yes,
Pedro
sorry,
Pascal.
I love him, and I was first introduced him in Narcos, and he's fantastic in Narcos. But he's fantastic, but you would not have the hype and audience connection if you didn't have Baby Yoda, Grogu. It just wouldn't be there, and so they're not going to just let that go. They're just not going to let that disappear. I mean, for one, the advertising, like someone's going to go in and say, you're literally putting money and burning it. You're like, that's just money that could be made from all these things. So yeah, I think he'll be back, but I think we'll get some big plot moments and some kind of galaxy level events probably before then.
And if he does, I mean, it's one of those things that like, I hope that he doesn't come back just because of money. Like,
no.
And I don't think they would do it, but if he comes back, like, I just hope there is like purpose and a lot of really great
100%
story that is left to be had there, because this overall mission of returning him to his kind, like that was a very solid motivator and story driver and stuff. And so at that point, like we would need something else to replace that with Grogu being a part of the story. I think so. Sorry, go ahead, Donovan. You were about to say something.
Oh, I was going to say that I think season 3 will be Mandalore, 100%. And I could see the Mandalorian ending with him on the throne, and that's the end of the show. We do a 3-season arc, and then I could see this crossover Thrawn event happening 2-3 years from now. Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and them are like, what do we do? Hey, why don't we call up the Mandalore? And he comes in, has a great moment. You bring back Mando, and maybe Grogu is involved. I think that I can see a Luke show still happening with maybe Luke and Grogu, because then you obviously, I mean, who wouldn't watch that, Luke and Grogu? I mean, it's like a show 100%. Everyone's going to watch.
Inject it right here, baby. I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, so you
The
have that
Luke and
happening on.
Grogu store.
Yeah, I mean, but seriously, you have that show.
I would
happen.
take that
You
too. If it was a
Yeah.
fucking like 80s style sitcom with a live studio audience.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I would
That's
too.
not how the Force works.
Exactly.
But I see that happening, and I can even I see it multiple. Who knows what it's exciting. That's all I know, and I think they'll be smart about it. What do you guys think about? Go
So
ahead.
what if Din comes back to get Grogu and Grogu's like, no, I'm Grogu Skywalker now.
Honestly, it'd be fucking better than Rey Skywalker because he would at least been trained by Luke.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, that's good. So on the last thing on that point, like with the whole Thrawn story and climax and stuff, if that conflict were to rise to the scale that those conflicts normally rise to,
right,
where do we get our army?
I think
Empire
Army. I think you're more likely to have like an insurgency kind of like small team that makes its way
just
in.
How cool would it be? Like Donovan, like where you talked about like the Mandalorian story ends and then we jump forward and kind of this other stuff.
I mean, the Alliance is around.
They're rebuilding Mandalore.
Or the New Republic, The New Republic is around.
That's true. We have the New Republic. But I mean, the New Republic, if we're sticking to the timeline, they buy the dust from the First Order and there's all that nonsense. But like if there's a parallel conflict with Thrawn, if we tap, like we reclaim Mandalore, we're getting all our Mandalorians back, we're rebuilding our culture and our whole warrior thing. Like if they comprise this force of Mandalorians, fighting the Imperials and Thrawn, like that would be so dope.
I could totally
100%.
Totally.
I feel like it's going. I feel like that's going to happen. I mean, I feel like it's the logical thing,
Then those large scale battles, like in the Clone Wars, like with all the Mandalorians and stuff, were just some of the coolest.
I could also see. I'm making this prediction. Just came to me. I could see Mando having to kill his original clan leader in the process of taking
the armorer.
Because she's part of the outcasts. I could see her having to fight her.
Come back.
I think she will come back, and I think he'll have to kill her. I think he will have. That will be a huge character moment, is having to fight her and kill her to either protect someone or something.
I mean, one thing we've said a lot is if he takes off the mask, then his group is going to come after him to kill him. It could be a possibility.
Well, a lot of them were killed.
That's true.
I'd be sneezing and I didn't. But yeah, so the Imperials came. I mean, there's a pile of all their helmets. They didn't take them off.
No.
So somebody did, so
true.
But I think the armor, I mean, because she was the one left there picking up the pieces,
Right.
I don't know.
She gave him his first sigil thing.
And they were a cult too, so maybe they didn't get beat. She just had them drink some Kool-Aid and then just collected all their Beskar for her next.
Right.
Who knows? I could see.
Get into,
I don't know.
Anyway. Go ahead.
So let's get into Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
I think
that's big news.
It's got to be off-world. I don't see how it happens on Tatooine, because the purpose of Obi-Wan being there is to conceal and protect Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. He's going to do it in order to keep Vader off the scent of Tatooine.
Right.
That's got to be the only reason. I hope it's good. I hope it is kind of like a cooler version, I guess, of what we get in A New Hope, even though that is not cool at all. That battle really at all. The choreography
it's going to be, I mean, they've got to top Mustafar. Like,
how can they?
That's the best,
because he's
lightsaber battle in Star Wars, I think.
To me, it is probably the best one.
Yeah, I mean, and that is Anakin at his peak level, and at this point, he should be higher than that.
He should be Rogue One Vader.
Studying and getting.
So this should be Obi-Wan versus Rogue One Vader.
Yeah,
he is refined dark side Vader at his height.
And like,
and I don't know how. I mean,
It's got to be Obi-Wan
gotta be-
outsmarting him. It's going to be kind of like, I could even see it kind of be like a horror-esque kind of Vader chasing Obi-Wan through like a dark building or
I don't
ship
know.
or
Well,
Because
it's got to be
there's still the
I think
line.
The force has to play a big role in this because Obi-Wan has to stay alive to keep Luke alive, to fulfill the prophecy, to do all these things. And so what we've seen in Star Wars is the force comes through whenever the force needs to come through. And so in that battle, I think it's going to be one of those things where Obi-Wan draws from this power that he's not used to, kind of thing. And it just takes the fight to, he's over 9,000, you know?
right.
But there is that line in A New Hope where he says that, you know, last time, basically, you know, you bested me and now I'm the master, or, you know, only the master of evil, Darth. So it implies that Obi-Wan wins again, right? He has to.
I mean, he at least escapes, which would be winning in the context of Vader trying
Not
to kill
dying
him.
would be
Yes.
winning.
Yeah.
Sure,
in this
I think
context.
Because I think this season is going to be about Vader obsessing over Obi-Wan. I think it's Anakin's obsession of Obi-Wan trying, like, he can't get past the fact that his master is out there somewhere, and this hate of him is what drives him, and that's what's going to drive the season, I think. And so I think that's probably our climax, is that moment of that final confrontation, and Obi-Wan maybe, I don't know, doing something to put a more final way of getting Vader off the scent. I don't know, but like that's the only like reasonable conflict I can see working with those characters in that kind of show.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still unknown where this lines up storyline with Rebels, right?
Right.
Now, I know we're getting it. I'm glad we're getting it, but do we need to get it? Will it kind of muddy the waters even more? You know
I don't think so. I think it's more of the best part of Revenge of the Sith. And I think the best parts of Revenge of the Sith were underdeveloped. Like Anakin's journey to becoming I mean, you get that in the Clone Wars. You don't in the TV series. You don't really get that in the movies very well, of Anakin's journey to the dark side as much. Like, I think it's going to be further exploration of like the remnants of Anakin that are still in Vader at this point.
But it's called Obi-Wan Kenobi. So what's Obi's story in this?
It's Obi-Wan continuing to try to protect Luke. I mean, Obi-Wan's just trying to continue his mission. But I think Vader's got to be the inciting incident for the show.
Surely he's gonna have PTSD or something. You know who we have to see, like who we have to see in this series, and because from a story standpoint, I don't think it would make sense to not have this character. But I also think it would be difficult or challenging to do it. But we've got to have Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost. 100%.
He's in the Clone Wars too, so there's already precedent for Obi-Wan talking to Qui-Gon in that way. I think
that's
so.
the last place that we leave off of Obi-Wan going into hiding, is Yoda telling him, you know, you're going to continue training or whatever, and your old master is going to reach out to you or whatever. And he's like, Qui-Gon? Like in episode 3. And so that is happening. That is actively happening while he is in hiding on Tatooine. And so if they're going to explore story, and they've got to do it. And I hope it's Liam Neeson, and I hope it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it will be. Well, guys, anything else we want to hit on before we bounce this joint?
That was a good discussion. I feel that was good.
It was.
I liked. Yeah, no, I'm good. I think I got it all.
I like the Star Wars.
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah.
It's good to be a
Travis,
fan.
by the way, I don't know if you will get an Xbox or at any point, but now like they're about to bring a Game Pass app to the smart TVs too, so you could just play Xbox games as an app on your smart TV. But Jedi Fallen Order is a fantastic Star Wars story.
It's good.
That's the one with Cal.
Yes, it is in line with kind of the quality of Mando, and like this.
Yeah,
it's really good, and it's really fun, and they're going to continue that with more games. I even said this before. I think they mocapped and the guy that plays Cal Kestis is totally mocapped. Is the guy that plays Joe,
actual guy. Yeah.
So it could easily bring him into the live action, and he would be around kind of during the Obi-Wan series, because that kind of takes place almost right after the purge and he's in hiding. So Anyway,
Yeah, I don't know if it was if it was you guys or somebody else that was talking about that, because it was back when there was speculation about who's this Jedi is going to show up.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why they were like, it can't be Cal, it's because they got this whole new game coming out.
That was us. Yeah. That was
we
us.
did talk about it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well,
so yeah,
but it's more if you're in need or if you're looking out for some more quality Star Wars while you're waiting for new seasons of The Mandalorian and Fett and whatever else we're getting, that's some good shit.
Yeah, I'm in a fun phase of catching Melody up on stuff.
That is
so
fun.
we're going through Clone Wars now, like, and I still haven't finished Rebels, so I'm like,
I haven't either.
Rebels.
I've done season 1. Haven't done season 2.
Well, Daniel, how can our listeners write into us and find us?
They can write into bit.ly/2for1mail. And Joel has written into us this week. We're literally running out of time on our Zoom call. So Joel, next episode, we will get to your comments and questions. We'll respond to them. We have not forgotten you, our number one fan, Joel. But write into bit.ly/2for1mail. Let us know what you thought of the ending of The Mandalorian. Let us know where you think everything is going and what's exciting about the new Star Wars universe to you. Let us know. bit.ly/2for1mail.
And Joel, if you want more podcasts, 2for1, go to podcast2for1.com.
That's right.
And of course, if you
We just
haven't
need
yet,
to start addressing only Joel.
we should. And then, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell. It helps people find us. Leave a comment there as well. We will 100% comment back to you and start a conversation. It's like our favorite thing about Star Wars, or at least one of my favorite things about Star Wars is having these conversations with other fans. We have other content coming out this week, actually, so be on the lookout for that. Guys, it was a pleasure. I'm so glad, Travis, we had you back on for this episode specifically.
Yes.
I love Star Wars.
I love these long conversations about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, my name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And Donovan has spoken.
Got him.
I'm Travis.
Donovan's caught in the headlights. He doesn't know what to
let
do.
it happen.
He doesn't know what to do.
happen.
What's saying?
I was going to let it happen, guys. We have spoken.